everyone. I'm Susan Illene, author of Darkness Haunts. I'll be with you today to talk about my book. Thanks to Bitten by Books for hosting me, and I'll go ahead and get started with the questions. Three things that you don't know about me and can't find in my bio. The first thing would be that beware of me being upset with you and feeling the need for revenge. For instance, with my husband, he often does things to upset me, and I have to find creative ways to get back at him without anything turning too violent. So one of my incidents that I did was we had a spider that popped up in the toilet one time, and no, I didn't put it there. But he found it and we had to get rid of it, and we made sure to be aware to check the toilet after that to make sure that it wasn't, because nobody wants to sit on a spider, and especially one that in this case was a brown recluse and known to be very poisonous. From that point forward, we were checking the toilet, but months go by and you get lax in checking these things, and so I thought I would help him out with a reminder. I got a talking toilet paper roller, placed it in his bathroom so that once he hit the toilet paper roller, it would give him a warning saying to check the toilet. Of course, naturally, he would already be on the toilet once he got this warning. One night, after I'd actually gone to bed by the time he made it to the bathroom, and he went in there and he was doing his thing, hit the toilet paper roller, and about leaped off the toilet and made a complete mess of himself. And so he's looking around, he thinks a ghost is talking to him. It was my voice recorded on there, but it's kind of hazy when coming through a toilet paper roller. And so it took a couple minutes for him to realize that, in fact, I'd pulled a prank on him. I got quite a good laugh at the retelling of the story later. So beware that if I am upset with you, you never know what kind of means I might use to get back at you. For number two, I'm handy with knives. This question actually made me think of a scene from early in Darkness Haunts. One of my beta readers questioned whether readers would believe that my main character, Melina, could open a knife with one hand, a fold-out knife. So I've brought my training knife, and it's bigger and red and easier for you to see on camera, to show you that, in fact, anyone who's familiar with knives generally is able to do this trick. You just open it with one hand and it pops right out. It's great because usually you have these in your pocket and you need to pull it out quickly. So it can be done, and so now my beta reader can see it for himself. Feel free to comment and say whether or not you're familiar with that trick as well. For my number three, a thing you might be worried about me is I'm also trained in hand-to-hand combat, particularly in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The military paid for us to go through training, and I did a lot of one-on-one lessons as well in my own time. Potential actors for Darkness Haunts. That's a tough one. To be honest, I haven't given it a lot of thought. It wasn't something I went into when I was writing the book. After seeing the questions given to me for this interview, I debated long and hard, and at least for my main character, Melina, I'd say Jennifer Lawrence would probably come the closest in demeanor and looks to what Melina is. For the others, I still don't have a really good idea. Lucas, who shows up early in the novel, the closest actor I've ever seen to Lucas is Val Kilmer, in the way he looked in Top Gun, but obviously he wouldn't be a good candidate now. But I hope maybe my readers will get their own visual in their head and maybe they can give some good suggestions. How do I keep track of all my world building? It's pretty much the same as most authors. You write notes, you create files on your computer, print it out, make big notebooks out of it. The usual stuff, complicated, darker side of writing that readers don't really have to put up with. You just get to see the fruits of it all. How long did Darkness Haunts take to write? I got the idea for it in June of 2011 and kind of let it ruminate in my head for a few weeks, and then began writing in July of 2011. It took approximately 6 months, a couple short breaks in there where I kind of let the story ruminate in my head a little further. But for the most part, I wrote mostly continuously for that 6 months until it was completed in January of 2012. And I spent about a year revising and editing it, going through it with beta readers and critique partners, and eventually the editors that did the final sweep. About Darkness Haunts and what drives the novel. It has to do with a young woman, Melina, who has some special abilities. Because of these abilities, it makes her a target for supernaturals, and she's done her best to avoid it since a very bad incident happened to her when she was 18. She served in the military, and that gave her some confidence and fighting skills, but she still felt it's best to avoid them at all costs. Then her best friend, Ania, goes missing while on a trip to Alaska, and Melina has to go up there and try to save her because humans are not aware of supernaturals, and Melina's afraid that they may be involved, and there's going to be nothing the police can do about it. So she goes up there and she runs into a lot of trouble, and she kind of has to discover some things about herself and the supernatural world at large while trying to save her friend. So it's a lot of things that play into driving the character and helping her grow and learn from her experiences. I have about 5 books planned at this time for the Censor series. They'll all follow Melina in first person, just like the first one does. And there's a possibility that I may do 2 world books for kind of the romance angle that'll be spin-offs from the main series. We'll have to see how that goes, but I'm looking at the first one being after book 3 if all goes according to plan. So that's pretty much it for right now, but as you know, most authors remain open to change when it comes to these things. Researching characters' backgrounds. My main character is military like I am, but in that sense that's where we're similar, but it deviates off after that because her military background is as an interrogator and I was not an interrogator. So I did have some friends that did work that job, and I used some of the things I learned from them while I was in the military to help provide a basis for my character. I also looked a few things up as far as training times and things like that. Typical duty assignments. Most of it I knew, like I said, because of my friends, but there were a few details I had to go back and verify. For the other characters, it was just little bits of research here and there, but nothing too significant. Like I didn't pick any characters to do jobs that would be well beyond my capabilities. It was a lot more into researching their history and backgrounds that took the bulk of the time. Where they lived, especially with immortal characters, there's tons and tons of history you have to go through, and that was where I spent many hours going through figuring out how to name them and what kind of histories to give them and how that would shape their personalities. So that was the basics of what I did to get into their characters. Plotster, panster. I'm definitely somewhere in the middle. I know my beginning, I know my end, and I know some of the highlights that go on in between. But I like to remain open for any new plot twists that'll come up, and often once you get started writing, you never know what might happen. So I definitely can't be rigid in my writing, but I do try to stick to the basics of the plan. Creatures in Darkness Haunts. This is a mixed species world, so you're going to see pretty much a little bit of everything. You'll see witches, werewolves, vampires, fae, there's a mystic, a shaman, my main character, who's a totally new race I developed, and she's mostly human, has most all the same vulnerabilities as a human, except she's immune to magic, and she's able to sense supernatural races, anyone that's nearby. This makes her somewhat of a target, and it plays into the plot of the novel. There will be other races as the series progresses, so ones you didn't see in this you won't see in this novel may appear in other novels, some that I haven't even seen but found in some lore that I did research on. So it should be fun if you enjoy mixed species urban fantasy. 2013. Already we've seen that Darkness Haunts has come out here in January. The next book will be Darkness Taunts, which will come out by the end of June 2013, and my hope is to get book 3 out by the end of the year. It's not named yet, but I'll be sure to announce that on my website when it is. And now it's time for a couple questions for the audience. One thing I would love to know is, for your favorite urban fantasy heroines, what are you looking for? What are your preferences as far as their vulnerabilities, how strong they are, how weak they are, how much training you think they should have already had, or do you like them to be young and innocent and have to kind of figure things out? Go ahead and just write in the comment section and let me know what you look for. I'd like to hear it. For the next question, I would also like to know about settings for urban fantasy. Obviously, there's some cities that are favorites, but it's also nice to get a change of scenery and see places that you haven't seen before. So if you have preferences on where you like to see your urban fantasy set, or no preferences at all, feel free to comment and let me know. And now we've reached the end of the interview. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch this interview, and I hope to see all of you stop in and ask questions, leave comments, let me know what you thought, and if you have any further concerns about what the novel's about, then go ahead and ask away.